What happened to Jesus between ages 12 and 30? This question has puzzled scholars and believers for centuries. These missing years represent one of history's most intriguing mysteries. The story we know starts with Jesus' birth in Bethlehem. We hear about his family fleeing to Egypt, then returning to Nazareth. At age 12, he amazes temple scholars in Jerusalem with his wisdom. Then, silence. The records go quiet until he emerges at age 30 to start his ministry. Think about it, 18 years of silence. That's most of his young adult life. Where did he go? What did he learn? Who did he meet? These questions have sparked countless theories and debates. Some say he stayed in Nazareth, working as a carpenter. Others believe he traveled far and wide, learning from different cultures. There are even those who think he visited places like India, Tibet, or Persia. The answers might be hiding in ancient texts, buried artifacts, or historical records we haven't found yet. Or maybe they're right in front of us, in clues we've overlooked. In the next 18 minutes, we'll explore the most compelling theories about Jesus' lost years. We'll look at historical evidence, examine ancient writings, and consider new discoveries that might help solve this centuries-old mystery. To understand the mystery of Jesus' lost years, we need to step back in time. First-century Judea was a complex world of culture, trade, and political tension. Picture the streets of Jerusalem in the year 10 CE. Roman soldiers patrol the walls. Jewish merchants sell their goods in bustling markets. Travelers from distant lands bring stories, spices, and new ideas. Jewish families like Jesus's lived under Roman rule. They paid heavy taxes and followed strict religious laws. Most people worked as farmers, craftsmen, or traders. Children started learning their family trade around age 12. The Romans kept detailed records of everything: taxes, crimes, major events. Yet they wrote almost nothing about Jesus' early life. This silence is unusual. Later, when Jesus began his ministry, Roman officials wrote about him often. Trade routes connected Judea to far-off places. Caravans carried goods to Egypt, Syria, and beyond. Some routes reached as far as India and China. Young men often traveled these routes to learn and trade. Teachers called rabbis gathered students to study Jewish law. These students traveled with their teachers, learning wisdom and debating scripture. This system was common when Jesus was young. Many Jewish people at this time expected a Messiah, a leader who would free them from Roman rule. They studied prophecies and looked for signs. Religious groups like the Essenes lived in remote communities, preparing for this Messiah. We know about this period from many sources. Jewish historians like Josephus, Roman government records, archaeological finds, the Dead Sea Scrolls, personal letters and documents. Yet these sources rarely mention Jesus before age 30. This gap stands out because later records describe his life in detail. This background sets up our next question. Where might a young Jewish man go during these missing years? And why would he leave no trace in historical records? Jesus' known timeline has two clear moments. At 12, he's in Jerusalem's temple, amazing the teachers. At 30, he appears at the Jordan River for baptism. Between these points, silence. Let's look at what we know happened at age 12. Jesus' parents found him in the temple after 3 days of searching. He was discussing deep religious matters with learned scholars. His mother was worried. His response? "I must be about my Father's business." These words hint at his early understanding of his purpose, but after this remarkable event, the biblical record goes quiet. When we see him again at 30, he's ready to start his ministry. He speaks with authority. He shows deep knowledge of Scripture. He understands multiple languages. This raises key questions. Where did this knowledge come from? How did he develop such wisdom? The traditional answer says he stayed in Nazareth, working as a carpenter with his father Joseph. This fits with local customs. Jewish sons typically learned their father's trades. But some details challenge this simple explanation. When Jesus teaches in Nazareth, locals ask, where did this man get this wisdom? Their surprise suggests they hadn't seen him in a while. Travel records from this era show young men often left home to study. Famous teachers moved between cities with groups of students. Libraries in Alexandria held thousands of scrolls. Learning centers existed across the region. The length of the gap is important. 18 years is a long time. Most people in Jesus' time lived to about 40. These missing years cover nearly half his life. We can track small clues. Jesus later shows knowledge of Greek philosophy, foreign customs, healing practices, multiple languages, advanced religious teachings. Where did he learn these things? The answer might lie in ancient trade routes. 3 major paths crossed near Nazareth. The King's Highway to Egypt, the Silk Road to Asia, the Spice Route to India. Each path offered opportunities for learning, each connected to centers of knowledge, each could explain different aspects of Jesus' later teachings. Different cultures claim Jesus spent his hidden years with them. Each theory offers unique evidence and raises fascinating possibilities. India stands out among these claims. In Kashmir, ancient texts speak of a teacher named Isa. He arrived from the West and studied with Buddhist monks. The stories match Jesus' timeline. The teachings share common themes about love and compassion. Buddhist monasteries hold scrolls that describe this Western teacher. They say he learned meditation, healing, and spiritual wisdom. He spent years studying ancient texts and discussing with wise men. The details paint a picture of a young man seeking deep knowledge. Egypt offers another possible path. Alexandria was the world's largest library. Scholars from every land gathered there to learn. The city had a large Jewish community. They mixed Greek philosophy with Jewish teachings, ideas we later hear in Jesus' messages. Some texts mention a Jewish teacher in Egypt who performed healings. He studied ancient Egyptian medical knowledge. He learned secret teachings kept by temple priests. These skills match what Jesus showed in his later ministry. Persian records tell of a wise man from the West. He studied with Zoroastrian priests. He learned about the battle between good and evil. These ideas appear in Jesus' later teachings about light and darkness. Even England has a story. Glastonbury legends tell of a young Jesus visiting with his uncle, Joseph of Arimathea. They say he built a small chapel there. While this might sound strange, trading ships regularly sailed between Judea and Britain. Each location adds a piece to the puzzle. India explains his spiritual teachings. Egypt accounts for his healing powers. Persia shows where he learned about cosmic forces. Britain connects to tales of early Christian missions. Physical evidence exists in unexpected places. A monastery in Tibet claims to have his teachings. A temple in Japan says it holds a lock of his hair. Churches across Asia tell stories of his visits. Ancient documents outside the Bible give us glimpses of Jesus' early life. These texts weren't included in official church teachings, but they tell interesting stories. The Gospel of Thomas mentions Jesus' travels to other lands. It includes sayings that sound like Buddhist teachings. Some phrases match exactly with ancient Indian texts. These connections are hard to ignore. A manuscript called The Life of Saint Isa turned up in Tibet in 1887. It tells how Jesus learned from Buddhists and Hindus. The text describes him teaching against the caste system. It shows him defending women's rights, ideas he later preached in Judea. The Aramaic language gives us clues. Jesus used phrases that came from Eastern wisdom. His parables share patterns with Asian teaching stories. Some of his most famous sayings match older Buddhist texts. Letters between early church leaders hint at secret teachings. They mention things Jesus taught that weren't written down. These private lessons included ideas similar to Eastern philosophy. Hidden texts in Egyptian tombs tell of a foreign healer. The timing matches Jesus' missing years. The descriptions fit what we know about his methods. Recent discoveries add more pieces. Ancient scrolls found in monasteries. Jewish texts from desert caves. Letters between religious teachers. Carved stone inscriptions. Scientists and researchers keep finding new evidence about Jesus' lost years. Modern tools help us read ancient documents in fresh ways. DNA tests on old artifacts show unexpected connections. Items from churches in Asia contain genetic traces from the Middle East. These findings match the times when Jesus might have traveled there. Satellite images reveal old trade routes. They show paths between Jerusalem and distant lands. These roads made long-distance travel possible, even 2,000 years ago. Computer analysis of ancient languages shows interesting patterns. Jesus' recorded words contain phrases from multiple cultures. This suggests he learned from different teachers during his quiet years. Archaeological digs uncover new clues every year. A recent finding in northern India matches stories about Jesus' visits. Scientists found Jewish symbols in places that match the timeline. Scholars now study climate records from that time. They can track where travel was possible during different seasons. This helps them test if proposed journeys could have happened. New technology lets us read damaged scrolls. Special cameras reveal hidden writing. This brings new information to light every year. The mystery of Jesus' lost years continues to captivate us. Each discovery adds to our understanding, yet questions remain. Maybe he stayed in Nazareth, learning carpentry and studying scriptures, or perhaps he walked ancient roads to distant lands, gathering wisdom from many teachers. Both paths could explain how he emerged as such a profound teacher at age 30. The evidence points in many directions. Buddhist texts describe a Western teacher matching his description. Egyptian records hint at a healer with similar powers. Persian stories tell of a wise man sharing familiar messages. Modern science keeps uncovering new clues. Each finding helps us understand what might have happened during those silent years. The mystery drives researchers to dig deeper, look harder, and ask better questions. What matters most isn't just where Jesus went, it's how these years shaped his message. His teachings combined wisdom from many sources. They spoke to people of all backgrounds. They still connect with people today. The search continues. New tools reveal hidden writings. Archaeologists uncover ancient sites. Scholars piece together fragments of history. Each discovery brings us closer to understanding these mysterious years.